Jo Roberts, welcome to the lockdown sessions. How are
Hi,
you today?
I'm good, thank you. Yes, how are you?
Yes, I'm fine. I was just sharing with you before, I've just finished a workshop where a group of 15 people from 11 different nationalities and 4 different roles all came together in one team and came up with a purpose. So I'm feeling like really energized for today's conversation. And
Brilliant. That's a good achievement.
you operate as an executive coach
Yeah.
with years of industry experience behind you as well.
Yeah.
And we came together actually through LinkedIn. It was social media that brought us together. And I
That's
thought,
right.
why not shine a light on your observations during lockdown? Because you're joining us for some of our programs working as a coach. And I'd be interested, as I start every single one of these sessions, so I think you're like episode 50 something, it's always the same opening question, which is, as someone who works with corporates, with businesses, what have some of your observations been over these last sort of 7 months? Because having spent decades working in industry, suddenly you're now on the outside looking in. So tell me, what have you been seeing?
Well, first of all, I can't believe it's been 7 months, actually. It sounds quite shocking when you say it like that.
Yeah, start on a negative, why don't we?
It's amazing, isn't it? And I think what I've really noticed, and I think it's changed as lockdown's gone on, but the general sort of theme for me really is just this mass confusion. And the word that I'm using a lot, probably for myself actually at the moment, is discombobulation, which I love that word because actually it brings a bit of sort of lightness to something that's actually some really, really difficult times. Let's face it, it's hard for everyone out there. It's hard for us, it's hard for everyone. But that word gives a little bit of a sense to me of people trying their absolute hardest, but at the end of the day, just feeling confused. What on earth's going on? You know, 1 minute it's something we're going to be in lockdown for a month, then it's 2 months, then it's 3 months. And actually people have pulled out all the stops to do their absolute best, got really creative. We've done stuff on Zoom we never thought possible. People have homeschooled. And there was that real sort of sense of sort of great British positivity and let's sort of, we can do this thing, let's just get on with it. We know nothing's going to defeat us. But I think as time's gone on, it's just that sort of resilience and endurance has started to wane a little bit. And the themes that I'm picking up on with my clients are all professional people in a mixture of situations. Either they're still in role but their roles got more challenging, or they may have been made redundant. So I'm working with clients who have recently been made redundant, or their roles have grown as their peers have been made redundant. Right. So people are sort of dealing with a number of different situations, but I would say I'm noticing a real theme around wavering confidence and wavering positivity. So whilst that sort of initial waver, we can do this, we can fight this thing, it's just starting to waver with people as time's going on, and we're dealing with so much uncertainty still for the sort of future.
As human beings, we're wired, aren't we, to be certain about things. So when things are, that confidence that you talk about starts to dissipate. How does it show up? I mean, what does that look like for your clients when you talk about that kind of waning confidence? What does it look like?
So I think people are coming to coaching sessions without a clear goal, really, but just a sense that they want a sounding board and someone to talk to. Some of my clients are quite clear that actually it's their self-confidence that they want to work on, and they will overtly state that. So no particular sort of goal, but actually I want to work on improving my confidence. So there's an outcome to that. And then other clients will talk about just the amount they've got on their plate, but when you dig under the surface, what's sort of creating the stress around that is the sort of loss of confidence sitting beneath it. And And then the guys that have been made redundant, you know, that's a sort of a very obvious one. It's like, well, how do I get back on track? What do I do next? Actually, do I want to go back into a similar job or the same industry? So there's some work that we can do around that in terms of looking at sort of strengths, looking at values, looking at what people enjoy doing, applying some positive psychology, really to just sort of get that confidence back on track and find a way forward. So whatever the way forward is, whether it's in current job or looking for fulfillment in a completely different field, which it may be for some people, or just that opportunity to really take stock and think about what's next. You know, dealing with confidence, actually, coaching is perfect for that. It's the sort of perfect go-to thing if your confidence is waning. So, yeah, showing up in a number of ways, really. But yeah.
When I was chatting with a friend in Romania, also a coach, and we were discussing confidence and whether or not other people can train others in how to be confident. So I'd be interested in your take on this, because we did a little we do a video log each week, the two of us, like a half hour, a bit like this, where we just talk about topics, and confidence came up. And my view is, because confidence is so intrinsic and it comes from within, I can't make you feel confident. So if you come to me as a coach because you want to get confident, I can't make you confident as a coach. How do you help people tap in to kind of unlock or reset their confidence barometer so it starts to build? Because for most of us, if I was to come and join you in your last company, new job, first day, I'm not confident because I don't know the job. But the more competent I get, the more confident I get. How do you as a coach help people who have maybe lost their jobs or doing so much more? They don't have that chance or experience yet. So how does a coach help?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it, isn't it? It's a case of constantly resetting. But that sort of coaching intervention is a really good opportunity to do that. And I think just raising self-awareness really is the sort of root of it. So getting clients to walk back through their career and really notice everything that they've brought to their roles to date. So a real understanding of where their strengths are, what their contribution's been, looking at their achievements. And when you're in a busy job, just sort of head down, getting on with it, you kind of forget everything that you've achieved throughout your life that's got you to that point, that's got you to that busy job and that sort of high status, high profile role. So whatever level someone's at, I find that a really useful exercise to do. And I ask clients to capture it in a way that's going to be meaningful and memorable to them, because your confidence is going to go again at some stage. Let's face it, for most people, if that's been a problem for you, the chances of you resolving that and it never happening again are unlikely. But if you've got something you can reflect upon and remember and commit to memory, that's going to help you in those times, and something you can sort of default back to. Other work that some of this doesn't work for everybody, but a couple of my clients have absolutely loved this, and they've sort of told me since that they still use it every day, is looking at sort of mind talk and the inner voices that go on, and almost in a very light-hearted way, creating little characters around it. So when that mind talk kicks off, you can name it and shame it, do something with it, lock it away in a cupboard, and roll out the more positive character and the more supportive sort of cheerleader type character. And it's amazing what little characters go on inside people's heads. But a couple of my clients have really, really enjoyed actually the sort of creative process of naming those people, giving them a name, describing what they look like, and creating a little identity around these sort of demons that are going on in their head that are kind of knocking the confidence when something's gone wrong and the negative mind talk kicks in. So I have found that quite effective with certain clients, not for everybody. No, you need quite a good imagination for that one.
But it's like it's the coaching version of the Harry Potter Boggart that kind of comes out of the cupboard. That's the scariest thing that they could do, that they have to kind of use their wands to kind of turn into something funny and release it. It's just the coaching version of it.
Yeah.
Self-talk, of course, I think plays a big part, and I know that I often leverage, even for myself, thought stopping techniques that, you know, I remember years ago I spent a summer in Ibiza, actually, with a dear friend of mine, and I was working at the time doing some coaching sessions, and I spent some time with a couple of relatively young Buddhist monks. And I can still remember them saying that, you know, the great thing about the human brain is it can't hold two thoughts simultaneously. So you can't stop the thoughts coming in, but you can control how long you keep them there for. And there was this one young guy, he was maybe 23. I was probably late 20s. And he said to me, "We must learn never to let the birds of sorrow make a nest in our heads." Now,
Nice.
Isn't it, right? I mean, it's just beautiful. Yeah. That would look good on a card, or basically a greeting card.
Yeah.
Never let the birds of sorrow make a nest in your head. And I thought it was so powerful as a statement, but it's kind of what you're talking about there, because when I slip, the only control I have is how long I stay slipping. If I stay too long,
yeah,
that mindset can really stick and get roots, and then I'm in trouble. But I'm interested because you mentioned before as well in your opening lines about kind of the confusion that's been created in this environment. Is there a connection between people's sort of lack of confidence with how uncertain everything is? Is there do you see a direct relation when you think about some of the leaders and the businesses that you are working alongside?
Definitely. I mean, dealing with ambiguity takes a lot of resilience, doesn't it, really, to sort of live in that space. So absolutely, there is a connection, not knowing what's around the corner, not knowing how long this is going to go on for, not knowing what it means for the business, and not knowing what it means for their teams and them personally. Absolutely, that's hard. So again, sort of resetting and coming back to it, centering around who you are as a person. What are your strengths? Working on values. What brings you meaning and joy in life? And then what is that mind talk going on? And just bringing some awareness around that. I think people are finding my clients are certainly finding that helpful to navigate some of this, because we can't change the situation. It's only the response that we can sort of deal with, isn't it? And that's a chipping away process, and it's a constant process. And it's just giving something a sort of a centering place to come back to, when the slide, as you've described it, starts to happen as you're slipping, catching yourself in that moment. And so the emotional cycle of change, you know, where are we on that, and how can I sort of bring that back to coming on the upturn, noticing where I am and doing something with that.
Never was that curve so well understood as in today's corporate world, and of course it grew. Although Cotter and his crew adopted it as the change curve, ultimately it started as the grief curve from Kubler.
Yeah.
And you kind of mentioned offline when we were chatting a bit that you've also been observing kind of grief going on, and I wonder if it's also playing a part in people's confidence, because you talk about joy and meaning, and I love those words.
Yeah,
people to find joy and meaning, but we're grieving for the old ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think acknowledging that can be very, very helpful, actually, because otherwise it can just sit there and sort of hold you slightly in the past, and sort of a longing for times gone by. So actually bringing about some closure on that, and allowing clients to then move on into the place they're in, which may not be the whole story. You know, they're not at the end of the journey yet, and it's difficult and it's tough, and they're climbing a mountain, and they're definitely not at the peak. But that sort of living in regret, or that sense of loss, it can be quite helpful to bring about a degree of closure to that. So I've been doing some work with one client around acknowledging that former life, that former job, what was great about it, and saying thank you to that, and giving sort of and gratitude for that. Actually, what did you really, really hate, and you're just glad you're never going to have to do that again? And getting that down on paper, and almost in the form of writing a letter to, in this case, it's, you know, a previous job, and getting that all down and looking at it as just a whole, rather than all the great things or all the terrible things or all the things you wish had happened or hadn't happened or what got you to this stage, but just looking at it more holistically and bringing about some closure. And that has been quite a powerful tool actually for clients that are, and it is grief. I mean, there's no other way. It is sitting with that sense of loss and not really knowing what to do with that, and it's sort of inhibiting their ability to then move on and look to the future, and what elements of that do I want to keep and take forward into the next stage without just sort of wanting to hark back to times gone by kind of thing. So yeah, lots of sort of tools and things that we can work with, and just the ability to talk and be heard and be listened to as well is very helpful for people in these times.
You know, when you say that, even that last sentence, the one word that jumps out at me is to be heard.
Yeah.
Coaches, I think we are trained to listen.
Yeah.
But I think what makes the difference in great coaches is they are also trained to really hear what's being said. And my sense with clients I'm working with is that loss that you talk about is there, and they can think of it as a loss, but acknowledging that they're grieving for the loss is a different phase of the process. They accept the loss, they've lost something and they feel it. What they don't always recognize is what they're feeling is grief for the loss. They're grieving.
Yes.
We need to give them the space. And you talked about sort of meaning and joy. So how do you move people from acknowledging and accepting grief and loss and the devastation of the world today that they're living in, to finding meaning and joy? Because that's a leap.
Yes, it is. It's like yes, it is, isn't it? It's a sliding scale of an entire history of a person's sort of catalogue of feelings. I mean, I am a big advocate of journaling and just writing stuff down, and I do a lot of it myself actually. I use journaling a lot to sort of get stuff out, and I very much promote that sort of style with my clients. So in the same way that I may ask them to use writing to work through this sort of grief process, I would probably use a similar style for looking at purpose and meaning going forward. So we might do some work around values, which I don't know anyone that hasn't sort of benefited from a focus on values and some work around that, and spending a sort of session really focusing on getting underneath, actually deep down, what am I all about, what things really, really matter to me. So really, really simple exercise, but that's a great sort of starting point. And then moving on to, so I'll either call it the miracle question or letter from the future, but almost getting clients to project forward and think about, okay, I might be on a rocking chair on a on a balcony somewhere, sort of with my grandchildren running around, thinking about them in the future, or whatever it might be. I might be running a sort of empire somewhere and sort of the top of my game, or whatever it is, whatever their vision for the future is, working that backwards then to how they got there, and what were the sort of values and the emotions that ran through that, what were the highs and lows. You know, acknowledge that there's still going to be some low points in that journey, but how might you see that pan out? And then it really sort of brings into sharp focus, oh, okay, so that is really important to me, and I need to focus more in that area in order to, and not to be too anchored to what that final destination is, but to have a start point that you can work back from and think about maybe the next steps that you want to take, what's important in terms of your values, what brings you meaning, getting to some kind of purpose in your life, in order to then project forward and think about what your next steps might be.
I have experienced journaling from therapeutic practice. I don't practice it as often these days. I was speaking to someone yesterday, a US coach, and he had started doing something called future journaling.
Right.
Rather than reflecting, he would journal based on how he could be a better person by behaving in a certain way today. So when those negative thoughts come in, what would he be doing?
Yeah.
In order to stop it, and then he would kind of adopt those behaviors. And he,
yeah,
I think he was on day 21, and he was
wow.
loving it, actually.
Yeah.
And he's a real journaler too. And
Yeah.
I suppose there's something that makes it real when you write it down.
Yeah, it's very revealing, actually. And I've been doing it for a couple of years now, and sometimes I go months without bothering, and then other times I just know that, so I feel a bit discombobulated. What is it? And the best way I can work that out for myself is just to write, free writing. So no structure, don't worry about spellings, don't, just free write any old stuff. And actually it's cringy when you read it back. I try not to read them back. But in the process of doing that, you really get into some stuff that you think, I didn't even know I was thinking that.
Wow.
I didn't even know I was feeling that. And actually quite often that then forms, for me, the basis of, I then go on, and once those emotions are a little bit sorted out through a bit of journaling, I can sort of mind map stuff and get into quite practical work plans and things from it. You know, what do I need to focus on? What do I need to do next? So whilst it sounds like quite a sort of loose creative thing to do, for me it actually moves on to some quite tangible, useful stuff connected to work or the family, or just stuff I need to get on with. It helps me untangle stuff really a lot. It's good.
Do you get to coach your kids, or do they just not interested?
I tried to coach my youngest son around his choice of university.
Right, how did that go?
He ended up going to the opposite one than the one that had come out in the coaching session. So I guess it was the right choice. So it kind of works, but in the reverse way.
Right. I've always found with kids, they're not that interested in my open questions.
No.
And just find it probably more intrusive than I could possibly have ever imagined it would be. But there is something, I suppose, when you talk about meaning and confusion, and it kind of makes me feel this is a time where clients are being, in your experience, really quite vulnerable with you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of weight, I sense, that as a coach you then carry, because you're creating a very safe place for people if they're being that vulnerable and talking about those kinds of things.
Yeah.
How do you make sure as a coach you don't take those stories home? Because you know, if you're dealing with loss and grief and
yes,
kind of, you know, meaning and looking for that confidence, those are the saddest side. I know practical stuff comes out at the end.
yes, yeah,
takes time to get there. How do you make sure you don't, you know, when you finish at the end of the day, it's like, oh my.
Yeah, no, it's very true. And, you know, it's impossible not to become emotionally invested in the work that you're doing with your clients, you know, and feel something, you know, as you say, part of what we're trained to do as coaches is really listen. You don't just listen with your ears, you listen with your whole being. So of course
Right.
you do soak up some of that energy. Absolutely. So I suppose I have learnt not to book too many sessions in a day.
Right.
That's because I know I need some time afterwards to, you know, it would be, I would never go straight from one coaching session straight into another. I know I need a little bit of time to decompress and just reflect on the session myself, you know, what's gone on for the client, but also what's gone on for me and how am I feeling about it, and what do I then need to do to get myself back on track and ready. And then I also work with coaches, you know, I'm in touch with a lot of coaches, having recently done some additional training myself with a group of coaches in similar position. So I'm in touch with a lot. So we help each other out. We sort of supervise and coach each other and work stuff through. So I sort of have all my own little remedies and toolkits to sort of keep me in a good place and not sort of too bogged down with it.
I like that. I think it's important as well. What about the observations that you have then on kind of how people are showing self-care? Because as we move forward over the next few months, we're in winter months, it's dark, coming. What can people do to make sure they're looking after themselves? Because so much of what you've said to me today kind of makes me feel as though there are a lot of people out there right now who have all got very, very busy minds. They're cramped, I imagine. What can we do from your point of view that kind of gives us a bit more balance?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very different for different people, but there are the sort of obvious things around diet and exercise. I mean, obviously looking after your physical self is going to help your emotional and mental space as well. So I think in summer we all found that very easy when we had the nice weather and we were all able to take our dogs out for walks and that kind of thing. Or working from home actually gave people the opportunity to go out for a bike ride before they started. But, you know, there were some benefits to that, weren't there? And you know, of course, that then helps with our endorphins and our positive state if you've done some physical activity and movement and eaten well, which again, it's easier to do that when we've got nice sunny weather and we're sort of all eating nice healthy food. But yeah, it's making that sort of mental space and that time to decompress as well. And I think people that seek out coaching know that that's important, and they use coaching as one of those tools. It's possible that they may also be into meditation or sort of reflective practices of their own. And I think carving out that space to just reboot, reset, restore. I know we're not computers, but actually they're quite helpful terms. We need to, don't we, switch off and on again, just to reset. So I think actually the clients I'm working with are probably people that recognize they need to do that for themselves, and they've opted for coaching as one of the ways in which they're going to sort of restore their energy. But yeah, a little bit of understanding around, I need to sort of feed my soul and my spirit. I need to feed myself, allow myself to rest mentally, and I need to nourish and exercise my body. And if I do all of those things in some shape or form, I'm going to be in a better place than if I choose not to do those things. So I guess it's about balance, isn't it? And trying to make time for those things as well as just the sort of the grind and the work that we have to get on with.
It's eat, sleep, rave, repeat, basically. You've
pretty much. I don't know about the raving. That would be nice.
Not in an enclosed space.
Zoom raving.
I add. But there is, you know, therein lies the challenge, right? Because, you know, when people are working from home, I think it's easier to snack all day.
Yeah.
People are working from home, it's easier maybe to lie in a bit later or work a bit later because you don't see people leaving the office, or you open your laptop at 11 o'clock because you just didn't quite finish that email and you were starving, so you went in for some food. I think it's actually more discipline is required. I've worked from home for 25 years, and people often I used to laugh because when they used to ask me what I did all day, inferred within their question was I sat on my sofa watching daytime TV, eating all day. That wasn't ever the case. Although when Oprah was on, I wouldn't mind, you know, a nice hour of Oprah in the middle.
Oh no, love Oprah.
Right, exactly. But I think now suddenly there's a huge sort of empathy, discipline required to work from home. You know, to make sure you work the hours that are good for you when it comes to your energy levels, to stop and not still be working at 8 o'clock at night.
Yes, there's no that sort of definite start and finish is just a blur, isn't it? You don't have the sort of right, I'm getting in the car and I'm going to go home now. So yes, I agree that self-discipline, it's a tough one. It's
where I've said to people, look, just get a dog, because with a dog you're guaranteed to go out in the morning, you're guaranteed to go out in the evening, and I know for a fact now that it's getting darker, it doesn't matter what dog I've had, as soon as the clock start, you know, as soon as the sun starts setting earlier, my dogs know when the day is shortening.
And they tell you, don't they?
They do. And you know, by 3:30 to 10 to 4, they start getting funny about it's dinner time, and dinner's not till 4, by the way, for my food. And then as soon as they've had dinner, it's like Rocky, the Springer, he'll just come and sit. Literally, he'll leave the house, walk down to the back of the garden, into the office at the back of the garden, and he'll just sit next to me, huffing, until I take him out. And I've always felt grateful.
Yes.
Because I know that I've got 1 or 2 breaks a day where I get up an hour.
Our dogs look after us, I think. They really do. I'm slightly obsessed with my little dog, but he does look after me. And then at the end of the day, they give you a cuddle on the sofa. So they give you everything you need in life.
Correct. I think really, quite frankly, if anybody's listening to this and looking to how to self-care, get a dog, I think.
I agree.
Maybe we'll call that the title of this podcast. We'll just say,
get a dog.
Just get a dog.
Self-care. In fact, when you ask the question about self-care, there we go.
Get a dog.
forget the original answer. Just get a dog.
Get a dog. Listen, my first Labrador, she was my first proper therapist. She was. We used to go out on like 2-hour walks. I used to talk endlessly to her.
Brilliant, listeners.
Oh, amazing! No judgment.
No.
And sometimes I would say something and she'd look at me and like she'd turn her head to one side with like, you what? And so I'd repeat it. And actually what was great about having a dog and talking to a dog was it's just saying it out loud. So I know we're joking, and maybe this brings us full circle, and it could be my last question to you, but it's that, are there certain questions we can ask ourselves? So maybe not everybody can afford a coach. Maybe people don't have the capacity or want to, break down everything that's going on with someone else.
Yeah.
What could be some of the 2 or 3 topical questions I could pose to myself that would help me start to bring back confidence, understand my meaning, find some joy? Have you got a couple of kind of tipsters?
I think, I have actually, because, and I agree with you, coaching is a luxury, but for busy people that haven't got time to even think about it, it can just be that intervention, and it's sort of holding it to account. It's in the diary, and I'm going to have time with my coach, and that's my time to reflect. But you don't have to do that. You can, and again, I'll come back to journaling as being the sort of perfect way of doing coaching for yourself on a budget, and just ask yourself, am I okay? And why? What? How am I okay? Am I okay? Yes or no? If it's no, okay, what's going on for me? And just start writing it down. You can always just pick up your phone and Google coaching questions and ask us. There's loads of them. Just work through lists of coaching questions. They may not get into the sort of level of, they won't get into the level of depth that you're going to get with a professional coach. But you can start to work out what's going on for yourself and think about maybe what's the root of that. And if you keep writing and writing and writing, eventually you'll start to get to some self-help and some solutions and some things that you could opt to do differently. And it just raises your self-awareness. So I think you definitely can help yourself without the intervention of a coach.
I love that. Not that we want to put ourselves out of business, by the way, just as a caveat to that last.
I'd recommend doing both.
Nice one. We'll add that in. Just get a dog and a coach.
A coach, and a notepad. A journal.
I tell you what, I'm going to throw that down because I think that should be the title of our.
Get a dog, get a coach, get a journal.
Yeah, and then you're done. No, that's been brilliant. I think I'm looking forward to us collaborating on more programs as we move.
Oh, me too.
This year. And I think what we should do is perhaps in January, once we've got through Christmas, get you back and do another episode and get your views of what the world and landscape looks like when we hit 2021. Yes,
that sounds really good. Yeah.
Jo Roberts, executive coach, thank you so much for your energy. That was really good fun.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.